What's up guys, welcome back to Classic Octane. I am Taylor. In today's video I have my dad jeans and my welding jacket on because it's fabrication day. So the fabrication we're going to be doing today is going to be twofold. Basically, the main goal is to cut off all the unneeded brackets and bits and bobs off of the back of the frame here. We're also going to trim off the back of the frame to get ready for our frame hoop, install the frame hoop, and then finally make the mounts for our seat. So this is the seat I went with. Those of you who have watched my previous Brat builds know I'm a huge fan of this seat. This is actually the third seat I've bought like this. They're Tuffise. This is their flat seat, Honda size. So they have a big Honda for like the 750s, and this is just the regular Honda size. And they are fantastic quality, very comfortable, awesome looks, quick turnaround time. They're a little bit pricey. They're close to 300 bucks. I think it was like $270, but even on the $2,500 budget I set for this bike, I did not want to cheap out on the seat. It's one of the biggest focal points of the bike, and then obviously one of the biggest contributors to comfort while you're actually riding it. So it's worth spending, in my opinion, a little bit more money on it. So what we're going to do to get started is actually going to be undoing a lot of this electrical and kind of sliding it out of the way. We're going to just kind of stuff it under the bike over here off to the side. The cable should be long enough to let us do that without any real fight. Then we're just going to start with the simplest part, so cutting off the tabs, cutting off the original seat mount, that kind of stuff. Then we'll work on actually trimming off this back piece. I won't go into super in-depth how-to. Again, I already have how-to videos, and I'll throw a card up right now of exactly how to mount one of these seats and how to put a frame hoop on a CB550. So this will be, like I said, kind of more of an overview. But once you follow along in the process, and I'll bring you guys along for updates as we go. I got all the wiring out of the way, and the little bracket that everything mounts to out of the way as well. So now I'm just going to remove the battery box, just this bolt here, then this bolt here, and then we need to make sure to put this back on because it is partly the motor mount on this side of the engine. What I'm going to do after that is actually wheel the bike out into the driveway and start to hose some of this off because it's just, like I mentioned before, just coated in grease and grime, and the bike's just been ridden a lot and hasn't been cleaned in a very long time. So I'm going to take a little bit of time to clean it up now that, like I said, the electronics are out of the way. I'll just kind of put those into a Ziploc or some kind of bag just to not get a ton of water in them. And make sure I don't get a ton of water down the carbs too. I'll probably just close the choke and just make sure I don't spray any direct water. But we're going to give this whole engine and whole back half of the frame and everything a really good clean. That way we're not trying to cut through this and weld through a bunch of grease and grime. And then we'll get to start chopping stuff off. I think the last 20 minutes or so, soaking it all down with degreaser, letting that kind of soak in, scrubbing it with a brush, washing it off, drying it off, and then spraying it down with mineral spirits and kind of going a little bit further. We got the back half pretty darn clean. I mean, light years ahead of where it was. I'm still going to have tons of work on the engine and kind of all over the top, but we'll worry about that at another time. I really wanted to just clean off all the grease and grime off of the swing arm and kind of back here, just so when I'm grinding, the metal shavings won't stick into it and just make it even worse. We'll at least kind of have a good starting point. So I'm going to go through and start to mark off all these little tabs, little tab here, and kind of go through and just make sure I label everything I want to remove, and then we're just going to grab the Sawzall and the cutoff wheel and the grinder and get to work. Got the back chopped off, and you can see those little tubes in here I was talking about. So we went just clear of those, which is about 1 inch back from the shock mount. I want to make sure we leave enough meat here to be nice and strong. We will box this in as well once we get the tube done. So now I'm going to whip back out the angle grinder with the cutoff wheel, and I'm going to very gently cut through the tops of these mounts here just to get down to that inner tube. So the idea is to not actually cut into that tube, just to expose the top of it so we can really tie in the welds. We'll also get rid of this little bump on the top here, which we don't need anymore. Once we have that done, we can actually get the tube in place, trim it down to fit nicely around the back curve of our seat. So we'll go ahead and grab the grinder and start to trim the tops of these off. Got the tops of these removed like I was talking about, so you can see that inner tube. That's what we're going to want our frame hoop to mate up to. This one's a little bit ovaled out, which is pretty common, so we can work on straightening that out, because there's actually like a little slug that goes partly in here and partly in the new tube to add some strength to the joint before we weld it. I am going to have to do quite a bit of cleanup with the flap wheel for all this stuff later, so I'm not going to worry about that right now. What we're going to do is grab that frame hoop, get to measuring and trimming it so that we can throw our seat on top of here and make sure it's all lined up before we tack it in place. Went ahead and mounted up the tank again so that we can get a nice close fit on the front end. Nice thing about these Tuffise seats, they do have this little indentation here for the rubber tank mount so that you can suck it up real nice and close to the tank. So here's kind of a first glimpse of what this is going to look like on the bike, which I am pretty freaking stoked about how that looks. Actually, I went with a distressed brown to try and kind of match the brown patina on the bottom of the tank, and I think it's perfect. If this was a too shiny of a seat, or not shiny I guess, but too perfect of a seat, I think it would look kind of out of place, but this distressed leather I think looks damn good. Let me know what you guys think in the comments on the seat choice and kind of how it matches. So sweet. All right, so we have our frame hoop ready to go right here. Well, ready to go as in I have it right here. Haven't trimmed it up or anything yet. The idea here is we're supposed to get this to sink in right behind this seat. So there's a little lip around here, around the back side, that this frame hoop fits perfectly into. So the idea is that when it's on the bike, it sits just over the back end of that tube, and it looks like a factory fit. So we'll get this in place, somewhat centered. It goes right over this frame rail, which is another thing I like about these seats, is the fit is perfect on these bikes. So the idea, like I said, is to kind of match how it just goes over on this back side. So our pipe is obviously, our tube I should say, is obviously way too long, which is ideal, so we can cut it down. We're going to grab the measuring tape. Like I said, I do have a video on exactly how to do this, but to give you the quick version, I'm going to grab a measuring tape, measure from the center of this factory brace out to the end of this seat. Then we'll lay this on top, get that same measurement to the end of this pipe, trim these off, and then weld them on. We have our hoop all trimmed up, hammered into place. The reason I had to hammer it is it looks like this one is bent in just a little bit more than it should be. Not a big deal. Just used a hammer, kind of tap it into place, put it up flush against those factory frame rails. We'll throw the seat in place and check our kind of overall fitment here. So these frames have a natural kind of upsweep on the back. So we're going to want to make sure we match that when we weld it. These tough side seats are designed to flex and kind of bend into place. So you can kind of get an idea if I push down in the middle here and then bend the back up, that we have a nice even gap all the way around the back. So I'm actually super happy with how that turned out. It was actually the first shot too, which is sweet. I cut it just a little bit long, and I'm glad I did, because I think it honestly would have been a little bit short. So cool. When in doubt, cut it a little bit long. You can always trim it off later, but it's a lot harder to add more material on. So I'm going to go ahead and drag the MIG welder over here, throw a couple tacks, and we'll make sure, do a final fitment, make sure everything, like I said, is straight and fitting exactly how we want. Then we'll throw some more solid beads on here. So a lot of you guys ask me what welder I use. I use MIG. It's an Eastwood 135. I'll make sure it's on my Amazon link on the bottom. Like I said in the previous videos, under every video in the description there's a link to my Amazon, what do they call it, affiliate page, something like that. Basically it's a page with all of the parts I use that are available on Amazon, including a lot of the tools. So if you're curious about this welder, I've had it for years, and honestly I've had great success with it, and it's pretty cheap, so I would recommend it. The Eastwood, let's see, MIG 135. I have their TIG welder as well, but not quite as proficient at TIG yet. So something structural like this, I want to go with something I know I can get good solid quality welds with. The little swoop up looks like we nailed it. Get a kind of look from a couple different angles here. So like I said, the idea is to match this natural kind of up sweep we're going with here. So let's grab a seat. Let me hit those with a little brush real quick. Give them a chance to cool down as well before we put our seat on there. Lay forward, bend it down. Oh yeah, that is going to be perfect. And when we go and actually make the mounts here in a minute, this will be even more critical, but sweet. All right, let's throw some finish welds on here. Finished all the welding on the frame hoop. It's super solid. I haven't actually cleaned up the welds yet, just because we still have tons of other cleanup to do on the frame, so we'll just do it all at the same time. Giving this just a minute to kind of cool down. Should be there now. So let's throw this seat on and see how we did for the final time. So really, like I said, the measurement we're really worried about right now is this length, and it's looking perfect. Sweet. Awesome. So now what we can do is actually move on to the mounting of the seat. These tough side seats come with 6 threaded holes in them. I normally only bother with 2. 6 is just, I don't know, it just seems like a lot. I normally go with these back 4. These, so by 2 I mean 2 rows of them. I normally go with these back 4 because they're really easy to access right underneath here. Basically what you do is you put a threaded rod in here. They sell a kit. I bought 1 kit, and this will be the 4th seat I mounted with just 1 kit. I don't know why they give you so many, but I'm happy they do. So we're going to throw those in here, put the seat in place, then we can start to actually measure and cut our bar stock to weld in the middle here. Once we get those welded, we are actually going to cut out this factory center support, just because the 1/4 inch thick bar stock is going to be stronger than this anyway, and that'll clean up and open up more room for our electronics box. So I have my bar stock ready to go. I just basically put the threaded rods in the bottom, put the seat where it's supposed to be, and then marked on the side here where each mount is going to go. So what I'm going to do now is slide this down, make sure it's even, put the seat in place, make sure I get it centered, make sure it's not twisted at all, it's far enough back. I'll push down, like I said, go around, make sure the gap is all even all the way around. And I'm actually going to come from underneath and throw 2 tacks on that bar itself. Then I'll be able to pull the seat off and then finish weld the bar. Give you guys a little update where we are. Got this bar all finish welded. The whole hoop is finish welded. The next step is going to be the next mount. I actually just ran out of this bar stock. It's right about 1/4 inch, maybe a little bit thinner than that, but it's still pretty thick. The only other material I have is a little bit too thin, I think. So I'm just going to go to the store and pick some of this up, but we won't bother putting that in the video because you guys have already seen the exact process. So I'm probably a little dirty and sweaty, but I'm going to call it there for this video. We have the seat almost all the way mounted. Like I said, we just need to run that other bar across and weld it up. Then the seat will be ready to go. So like I said, mentioned in the comments, let me know what you guys think about this distressed brown seat. And if you like it, if you think it matches the bike, or if not, then you can let me know that too. The website is fully live, fully stocked full of shirts. A couple of you guys have already made orders, which is totally awesome. Thank you very much. Those of you who haven't yet, it's classicoctane.com if you want to check it out. Got sticker packs and stuff in there as well. Anything helps to kind of go support the builds. In the next video, we are going to be diving a little bit more into the engine and the electronics. Since I have all of my parts, I'm going to include every part I've purchased for the bike so far, where I got it from, where you guys can go to get the same parts, and if you're kind of following along with this build, to kind of help you guys figure out where I get my parts from and what was all needed for this bike. And then we'll go into, like I said, some of the motor. We still have electronics box to build, electronic ignition, new voltage regulator rectifier. We got tons of work still to do on the bike. Got to figure out how to get these dents out of the tank. So all of that's coming very, very soon. So I appreciate you guys tuning in every Monday, and I'll see you guys next week. So there's a little teaser for those of you who stayed watching the video this long. I am about to go unload my Model A off of my car trailer because tomorrow I actually took off of work and I'm driving down to South Texas to pick up another car for the garage. I'm not going to tell you exactly what it's for or how long it's going to be around, but let's just say it has something to do with this guy. But you'll find out more later on.